a recipe for the most delicious, comforting pie that is perfect as the weather is changing. So this is so autumnal. I think you're really going to enjoy this. And I think all the family are going to like it. You can kind of change things up, add extras in as always to kind of suit your needs. But this has so much flavour. It's brilliant just as it is. So it's my sausage in red onion gravy pie. And not only have we got mashed potato on top, but we've also got pastry. This is one to save as well, because as we approach the festive season, which I can't believe I'm talking about this, but it will come really, really quickly, I actually cut out my pastry into stars on the top, so it actually looked quite festive as well. But you don't have to do that. You can do yours however you want to. I really hope you like the recipe. If you do, don't forget to hit the like button for me. And if you're new here and haven't yet subscribed to my channel, I'd love it if you do. I make everything using my Ninja Foodi. Today's recipe, we're going to be using air fry and also pressure cook. If you don't have a Ninja Foodi and say you've only got an air fryer, then you can use some shop bought mash, or you can make some mash on your hob as an alternative, and you can still make the pie no problem at all. And the very last thing before we start cooking, just to let you know that all my recipes are available over on my website with a subscription over there. There's over 100 recipes on there for you to choose from and be able to print. So that is available at www.susannahskitchen.uk. Let's go and make my sausage pie. To make my sausage red onion gravy pie, we want some mashed potatoes. So the easiest way to do those is chop them up, put them in some water, or you can alternatively use stock if you prefer. If you use stock, it's going to give you a lot more flavour. And I simply just pressure cook mine. So over to pressure cook, make sure my valve at the top is on seal. And then quick release. These aren't the biggest potatoes, but I want them to be nice and soft. So I'm going to go with 8 minutes on high. There's loads of different ways that you can make this. I have now drained the potatoes, mashed them, added some butter, cream and some salt to them. Obviously you can add whatever you want. You can definitely put a little bit of mustard into them as well, because that makes it taste really, really good in my opinion. My sausages, I could have just put these on to sear and saute, but I decided I wanted to cook them on air fry, just because I really love sausages when they've been air fried. I think they just taste really good. They stay really juicy and moist. So I can now simply just remove those. I did these for 10 minutes, so I'm guessing they probably are cooked, but if they're not quite cooked, it's not going to matter because they're going to go back in. So don't worry too much about that. The pot doesn't matter that is a little bit messy. We are actually now going to go on to sear and saute. So let's get that on. We're going to make the most simple onion gravy. And I've got 2 red onions here, and they are sliced up. And these are going to go lovely and caramelized and beautiful and give us a red onion gravy that is to die for. So I don't want the sear and saute too high, so let's turn that down a little bit. Let's get some spray oil in there. And we just want to cook these down to keep these moving. If you need to add a little bit more spray oil, do that as you go along. Let's soften these onions. I think these are probably going to take about 5 minutes or so, maybe 10. Sausages wise, I went for Cumberland sausages, and I've got 8 of those. Because the sear and saute is pretty powerful, I've actually decided to cook these for a bit longer, turn it down to level 3, because on 4 they were still sort of catching on the bottom a bit, even though I added a bit more oil. So whilst I'm waiting on those onions, I'm just getting my sausages out and I'm cutting them in half, and then 3 pieces out of each half. So each sausage is going into 6 pieces because they're just the right sort of bite-sized pieces for a pie, I think. Oh, I really love these Cumberland sausages. I've bought these a few times now. And these are really tasty. Just the smell of them is so nice. I'm also just boiling the kettle so that I can make up some stock to make my gravy. I'm choosing a chicken stock to make my gravy for this. It's going to just add that extra flavour. We're also going to be using some honey and some thyme. salt and pepper. So it's quite simple really this, but it is super delicious. So the pie is going to be made up with the sausages and red onion gravy. Then we're going to layer it up with the mash. And then the little surprise that you're going to get on the top is we're going to cut out some pastry shapes and cook it with some pastry on top. I love this sort of meal. It's a really good family dinner. You can cook this ahead of time. You know, why don't you just, you know, make this in the morning if you've got more time in the morning, and then, you know, pop the pie, let it cool, pop the pie in the fridge, and then you can just literally bake it when you're ready for it in the evening. And of course, it's going to keep for the next day. And I always like to make something really big that's too much just for us. But that way I get leftovers the next day and you get a night off, don't you? It's always good. Now that the onions have really softened down, we've got a little bit of colour on them, but not too much. Remember, they are going to carry on cooking as well. I want to add in 2 tablespoons of flour. And by all means, you can use gluten-free if you need to. Stir that in to the onions. And this is going to make our base for our lovely gravy. The flour works as our thickener. So just move that around. Don't worry about how it's looking on the bottom because we are going to be able to deglaze that, not a problem. Now we pour in our stock. So you can just do a little bit of it, give it a good stir. You can see how thick that is. Go in with the rest of the stock. Pretty sure I'm going to have enough here. So that's 500 millilitres of stock that's gone in. I'm going to use my silicone whisk. That's just going to help to get anything that's on that bottom and also just mixing. So we don't want any lumps of flour in here. We want that to nicely combine. I have still got the sear and saute on in case you're wondering. So now let's give this some flavour. So some salt, like a fair amount of black pepper. We're on level 3 sear and saute, and that is just going to allow us to thicken this up a little bit more. My herb of choice is some thyme. Of course, you can use some fresh thyme. I just didn't have it today. So I have got some dried thyme. I think that goes really nice with the sausages and the onions. And then around a tablespoon of honey. It's just really nice in here. It's just going to add a level of sweetness. It just works so well. That is thickening up really nicely. If your sausages weren't fully cooked, then obviously put them in and allow them to cook until they are. Mine were actually cooked in the 10 minutes in the air fryer. I've got no raw bits here, but we can just get those in and heat those through with our lovely gravy. This is an ultimate autumn food. We're at that time of year now, aren't we? Where the weather is changing and we want a bit more comfort in our lives. And this is definitely going to give you that. Now, if you want to add anything more into this, then of course you can. Mushrooms work really well in this as well. I'm keeping mine fairly simple just purely because I'm doing this as a family meal and I want everyone to enjoy it, but you can definitely add what you want to. I've kept my mash quite simple and quite plain, and that's going to go on the top of there. But yeah, I do think a kick of mustard is really good. So you can put some mustard into here, which I meant to do actually. Let's stir that in now because that's not going to hurt. I'm going to put in some Dijon mustard. So let's go with, I can't believe I forgot this, around a teaspoon of Dijon mustard. So I'm just going to spread that around and then just mix that through. Ideally, I would have done this when it was on sear and saute. But I think that kind of heat from the mustard that you get, that bit of a tang, is nice because we've got that honey in there as well. So it's really nicely balanced. A little bit of sweetness from the red onions. Look at that. Absolutely gorgeous. And I think that way as well, it's less noticeable than if you put it in the mash. So if you're someone that doesn't like mustard, then leave it out. Or if you're serving this for children that probably wouldn't like mustard in their mash, then I think that's kind of a good way of doing it. So now with the mash over the top, I like to just spoon mine in small little pieces, and then I can spread it out. Like I said, you can leave this to cool and bake it later, or you can just go ahead and make the whole thing ready to eat. Oh, this really is going to be so nice. I think if I've got leftovers, I might even deliver some to my mum and dad because they would love this. So I've got a real nice, decent portion of mash on top of this as well. I used 1.2 kilograms of potatoes. And just lately, I've been preferring to use red potatoes for my mash. I think they come out really nice in the Ninja. And then we can just smooth this over. Yummy, yummy. So I've got my sheet of puff pastry, just shop bought. You can use gluten-free as well if you need to. And I'm just going to decorate the top. I mean, you can literally do this however you want. I've got some cutters and I thought I might do stars. So let's just go along and create these. They push out fairly easily. You can do a whole sheet on top if you like. I just fancy doing something a little bit different. I'd seen something similar to this online that somebody else had made, and I thought it looked quite effective, having cut out pastry. So I thought, let's give that a go. So we've got to remember this is all hot and it's all cooked. When it comes to cooking this and finishing it off, if you're doing it straight away, we really are only cooking the pastry. So that's the only time that we really need. So you can do that by putting it onto bake, or I don't really see why you couldn't air fry it. And I think that air fried pastry is really good. So I think I'm going to actually put mine onto air fry today. If you have cooled down the pie and put it in the fridge and then you're cooking it later, I would definitely suggest that you bring it up to room temperature before you go again with cooking it, just because it is quite deep and there is a lot in there and you don't want it to have cold spots. Basically, you want to make sure it is heated all the way through. All right, I'm not sure how many of these we're going to need, so let's start putting them on, shall we? So you can do this as you wish. You can overlap them. What should we do? I think I'm going to overlap them slightly. Let's do that. I think this is going to look pretty. Just going to go around with my stars like this. This is going to puff up, go really nice and golden. I think I just want one more star in the middle and I think we're good. There you go. Look at that. I'm going to give you a close-up. Look at the top of that. How good does that look? That's going to be beautiful. Now, I'm not going to waste this pastry, so do not worry. I'll re-roll that and I will make something else with it. I'm not quite sure right now what I'm making with it, but there's always something that it can be used for. Okay, so I've got my egg here. Let's give this a nice wash with the egg. That's going to make that go beautifully crispy and golden. Now, I think what I'm going to do, that actually brings it up fairly high still, although obviously that is the lowest position. But the base of the air fryer basket works really well with this. Look at that. Perfect. Imagine how much higher that would be if it was on here. So that is ideal. So I'm going to lower that in. Now I've definitely made it a little bit tricky for myself to get it out because I haven't made a sling, which was probably a little bit silly. I probably should have made a sling. So if you've got a sling or you want to make one out of a bit of parchment, then do that just so that you can get it out a bit easier. I mean, I can get my hands in there. So obviously it's going to be just very hot when it comes to doing it. But I'm going to get this now onto air fry and I'll show you what it looks like when it's done. I think you're going to want anything between sort of 10 and 12 minutes on the pastry. Look at that. It is bubbling up at the edges there. And I can see how beautiful that mash is. And this has got that lovely crispy pastry on top. And it's flaky and it's so delicious. And it really does add an extra element into this dish. So straight from the Ninja, this is what the pie looks like. What that gorgeous crispy pastry on the top, beautifully rich and creamy mash, and then those sausages in that red onion gravy. Let's dish up a portion. Oh, it's nice and crispy on the top. Oh, let's dig right down deep. Oh, yes. This looks incredible. That is one hell of a dinner. Got some extra sausages and gravy just here. Totally delicious. Look at that beautiful sausage and onion gravy. Oh my goodness, I cannot wait to eat this. I'm going to serve mine with some peas on the side, and this is making an absolutely gorgeous dinner. And this is going to feed probably 6 people.